Hi, we're solving equations. We're practicing that and we want to master it, so let's get started. I am going to fold my paper here in half because I want to show you both ways to do number one. And here it is. 2x plus 3 equals 6x minus 5. And here is way number 2. Now, I'm going to first do the obvious and what a lot of Algebra 1 teachers teach, or math teachers, period, and that's move the smaller letter, the smaller term, excuse me. This here is a term. The numbers and letters between the plus and minus signs are terms. So this is term 1 and term 2 on the left side of the equal sign. Term 1 and term 2. So they're the letters and numbers between the plus and minus signs. Okay, so now that we are going to move the smaller term, let's talk about which term we're going to move. Because this is a constant, because it's a number without a letter. But this is the x term. So I'm being more specific. So you want to move the x term. And let's do that. Now, uh-oh, I broke my pencil. I was writing that hard. Do I have another one over here? Okay. So, he is positive. So I have to do the inverse operation, which is to subtract him. And what I do to one side, I do to the other. And I'm going to move it to the right side of my line here and put it with its like term. Now, do not, and I say do not say 2 plus 6 and then write 8. That is wrong. In order to move the minus 2x to the other side of the equal sign, you have to do the inverse operation. Now that's gone away and it is 0 because you add and subtract to 0. Alright. Now I have to bring down what's left, and it's positive, so I don't have to write the plus sign. I would only write it if it was negative. And the reason I'm not going to write the plus sign is because there's nothing in front of it. So now this is 6x minus 2x. So if I have 6 x's and I take 2 away, I now have 4. And now we're back at the same spot again, aren't we? How do we do this? Well, here's my letter. And I need to move the 4 and the minus 5 because the 3 is not over there by the x, and I want to isolate the x. So how do I isolate the x? Okay, you add and subtract first, and then the number that's touching the letter you want to isolate, you move it last. So what I'm going to do is do plus 5. I did the inverse operation. That's 0. This is 8. Now what do? We divide the number that's touching that letter, that variable. I move it. How do I move it? Inverse operation. What's the opposite of multiplication? Because there's a little multiplication symbol there. And it's squeezed together. You can't see it. So I'm going to divide it off. Alright, so now x equals 2. And this is the answer. So let's check the answer first because we need to check our solution. When I say the word solution, I'm talking about the answer. So no sweat. Solution just means answer. And how do I know that this is correct? Well, let me take my 2x plus 3 equals 6x minus 5 and plug in my solution. So now I can check my solution. So I'm not going to use the calculator this time. What is 2 times 2? It is 4. Plus 3, it is 7. What is 6 times 2? It is 12. Minus 5, it is 7. Because both sides give me the same number, this is the answer to this problem. Let's do this over here. 2x plus 3 equals 6x minus 5. Same problem, isn't it? But now I'm going to show you, you don't have to move the 2x. You don't have to move the smaller x term. You do not have to move the smaller x term. You can move any x you want to move, as long as you move it correctly. So I'm going to move the bigger one. And to move it, he's positive. I don't pay attention to that minus sign because that's plus a negative on the 5. So the 5 is negative. I look at 6x, and I know if I subtract him, he will go away. And now he can be moved to the other side. To move to the other side, you have to change signs. You have to do the inverse operation in order to go to the other side. And I want to be careful about using the word change the sign, because I don't want you to think that you always change the sign to move it. So we're going to say inverse operations. So 2x minus 6x is going to be negative 4x plus 3. That's negative 4x. I bring down plus 3. Now that was plus a negative 5, wasn't it? So do you think I need to write negative 5 here? Oh yes, if I don't, the problem will be wrong. So now I subtract 3. Now why do I do that? Well, this is my letter, and I want to get this letter on the left side by itself. And so to isolate the x, I have to move the 4 and the 3. But remember, we're going to move this negative 4 last because it's touching my letter, my variable. So that means I have to add and subtract first, which would be move the 3 by doing inverse operation. So the opposite of plus is minus, so I have to subtract. 5 negatives, 3 more negatives, 8 negatives. Now let's divide off the negative 4 because it's multiplied. And now a negative divided by a negative makes it positive. And do we want to have a positive 1 left? Yes. When I divide, does it divide to 0 or divide to 1? It divides to 1. When is it 0? When you're adding or subtracting. That one's 0. That one right there is 1. Is my variable here isolated? Yes. How do you know? 1x and x are the same. So you do not have to try to divide that off. Negative 8 divided by negative 4 is going to give me a positive 2. And we got the same answer. You notice that? You just have to be careful. I want to be honest with you. When you move the bigger x term, it is a little more difficult. You have to deal with more negatives. That is why we as teachers, we teach you to move the smaller x term. But I wanted you to know, it doesn't matter which one you move, you'll still get the same answer. And we've already checked our solution, and there it is. So I think now we should do a little practicing. What do you think? Let's do some practice so that you can practice this at home. So I'm going to move the smaller one just because I don't want to deal with negatives. 2x. And what did I move again? The smaller x term. Now, when this went away, I was left with minus 1. Should I have changed that to plus a negative so I would have written negative 1 down here? Go for it. If that's what you need to do to remember, do it. But do you have to? No, you don't. So now, here is my letter, and I need to move the 4 by subtracting it. Not moving the negative 1. No, 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 no. Because my letter is here. And I want to move the letter, get the letter isolated. So I have to move the 2 and the 4. But you always move the one touching the letter last. So that means I have to move 4 by subtracting it. That's the opposite. That's the inverse operation. It cancels, it goes to 0. And now I have negative 5 and then 2x. And then divide by 2. And we have our answer because this goes to 1. So x equals negative 5 over 2. My pencil is dull and I don't want to go to the pencil sharpener, so forgive me for writing in pen. I'm going to do number 3, but I'm going to move the 6. So minus 6x. Do you subtract every time? What do you think? Well, this is positive, and all these problems are positive, so that's why I'm subtracting. So on number 4, I'm going to make one of them negative so that you're not always subtracting. Because I don't want you to think, always subtract the x term. No, you do the inverse operation of it. So minus 6x minus 6x. Drew my line, and what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So that's negative 2x minus 2 equals, I have left positive 3. Don't need to write the plus sign because when it's by itself, you just write the number and we know it's positive. Only time you write it is when you have a negative like we did over here. So now I want this by itself, so I have to move this and this, not the 3. And you move the one touching the letter last, so the inverse operation of that is plus 2. It's 5 minus 2x. That's multiplication, so divide by a negative. The inverse operation is division, so divide by it. And when you divide by it, there you go. That means I have to divide by the sign because I want the negative to go away. And the only way to do that is to divide by it. So you always divide when you have multiplication like this by what you see. So if it's negative, divide by negative. If it's positive, divide by positive. The only time you change the sign is when you're adding or subtracting, because the inverse of subtraction is addition. So now x equals 5 divided by negative 2. But how do we write that? Because we just practiced slope, right? And we knew the negative is always written in the top because that's the way the calculator produces it. So can I rewrite it and put the negative in the top? Yes, I can. Okay, so can you take these answers and can you put them in the calculator and put that in here and check to see if your solution is correct? Yes, we can. So let's do that because I didn't do it on number 2. And I'm going to use the calculator. I'm just going to use a resource. It's not cheating. Okay, negative 5 divided by 2. And I used the division sign that time. I didn't use the fraction bar. Or the fraction icon or whatever you want to call it. Fraction button. So negative 4 times negative 5 over 2 minus 2 equals 6 times negative 5 divided by 2 plus 3. And what did it say? True. Did you know that you could type the whole thing in there with the equal sign and it'll tell you true or not? So look, I know this is the answer. And so if, let's just say, I'm going to press the up arrow. Look what I did, because I did that fast. Up, up. And when I press enter, look, there it is. So I'm going to erase this and put a 2 and erase that and say that I got the answer 2. Let's see if it says true. False. That means the answer I would have got, if I had got 2, it was wrong. So it tells you. I don't want to do too many more of these because I don't want to overload you at home, because I want you to come into class and practice. But I will do number 4 and put a negative on this. So with a negative there, this becomes plus 8m when I move it across my bar. Cancel, cancel. Negative 4 equals 11m plus 8. Now I'm going to subtract 8. And now I get negative 12 equals 11m. Now I have to divide. And I divide by the number that's by the letter, because that's how I get rid of 11, because I want the m isolated. So there is my answer. And now I can check it. Negative 8 times negative 12. And this time I'm going to use control divide. Negative 12 over 11. And then minus 4. Put the equal sign, 3. Negative 12 divided by 11. Same difference. It gives me the same thing. And watch, because when I press enter, it's going to change and look like that one. And it's true, so I did it correctly. Okay, we're going to get a lot of practice of this combining in class, so no sweat. Go ahead and try it and see if you get it right. If you do the back, I'm proud of you. Good job. I will tell you not to forget that this is a big plus sign. And we should probably do this one real quick. So plus x negative 2, and there's a 1 right there. So really I said plus 1x, plus 1x. Brought down my negative 2. I have to bring that negative down. Equals, this is 4 plus 1, that's 5. Now I want x by itself, so I'm going to move the 6 first and then the 5 last. Divide by 8, divide by 5. Got to get the letter by itself. Got to isolate that letter. So now this is my answer, and I can check it, but be careful this time, because you're going to do negative 1. That's why it's important. We went back and wrote that negative 1 right there. And then do parentheses and type in our negative 8 divided by 5. And now I'm going to do minus 2. Put my equal sign, 4, open parentheses, negative 8 divided by 5, plus 6. And it should say true. Yay! Okay, we're good. So, good luck with this. I know you're going to do well. See you in class.